Welcome to another edition of 10-Minute Misconduct, where we talk all of the weekly happenings in Leafs land, the rants, the raves, anything we want to talk about, we bring it up right here. It looks like after the Leafs have won 8 of their past 9 games, Sheldon Keefe in practice today, he's going to switch it back to some old lines. He's reuniting Mitch Marner and Austin Matthews, William Nylander with JT, bringing Nick Ritchie back up to the top line. A lot of people on Twitter have a problem with it. For me, I'm kind of living by the model that Frank spoke about last week, in that we just go nuts over too many things, and it's a roller coaster ride. Just enjoy the ride. Let's see what happens. Trust the coach. I mean, he's got probably the winningest record of all time in Leafs land, if you really look at it. So just trust the guy a little bit. I'm sure he just wants to see a couple things. And we've all said it. This 82-game season, it's an 82-game season dress rehearsal. So I don't have a problem with them experimenting and seeing what works. I do kind of wonder about one of the switch, in the sense of John Tavares, I think, has played so well lately, and I think he benefits from playing with Mitch Marner. So taking Mitch Marner away from him might hurt him a little bit. And he said today that he doesn't think that Matthews and Nylander, although they've had individual opportunities, they haven't created a lot of opportunities together. So that might be the thinking. Any comments by you guys about reuniting these lines, or are you thinking along the same lines as me?
I really look at one thing again. It's overcoaching. It's thinking too much. It's doing something unnecessary. You don't have to. 8-1 is what I'm worried about. 8-1 is what I'm concerned about. When you look at, that's the record they have since these line changes. And granted, listen, it's not like the line was doing horrible. They were still putting up decent points between Matthews and Nylander. They were experimenting with on the left side. They had Bunting there. They had Cash there, which I thought was great. But here we are talking about getting a second line going. Matthews and Nylander, the talent individually themselves, I don't think we have to be worried about them ever not getting going. Like, Nylander leads the team in goals. Matthews is shooting at a historic low percentage, but he's getting the chances, so they're bound to go in, right? So I don't know. I think Keefe is just kind of playing with the hockey gods in the universe there, to saying, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And for me, I just thought it was unnecessary. But the anchor to me is Nick Ritchie again getting that look on the top line with Matthews and Marner. Again, the three guys that started the year off where they went into that losing streak. I'm okay. Ritchie's been good here and there, but again, to have him being promoted at the top line goes to show that they're very. I don't think they're happy with that left side. Let's just put it that way. If Kerfoot's been okay, and Kerfoot is what he is.
He's got 11 points in 13 games or something like that. Like, he's been pretty good.
Bunting's been come as advertised. Nothing great. He's just kind of been there. But if you're flip-flopping between Ritchie and Bunting and the odd time Cash, again, you can't do much because of the salary cap. But that left side is really bad. And if you're they're looking to make win a couple rounds in the playoffs, that left side's got to get better. So to me, I think that's their number one area of concern. So again, maybe we're making something big out of nothing, but when you've won 8 of the last 9, you're not touching it till it really goes in the tank. So I hope for their benefit I'm wrong, but I just really hope this is nothing again catering back to Mitch and Austin, committing to that twosome that went 0-4 in the last playoffs. And that's really what I'm concerned with, is going back to maybe somebody said something, or Mitch is complaining again. I just don't want to hear the same garbage that we faced last year.
I almost feel like putting Nick Ritchie up on the top line is setting him up for failure, because he's not a top 6 forward. I actually like the way he's played on the fourth line with Spezza and Simmons the last few games that he's been there. I thought his game's much more noticeable. He's getting chances. They'll eventually go in, some of them for him. So I know Keith's thinking what he said today in his press conference was that he felt that when they played together at the beginning of the year, all three of those guys, Mitch, Austin, Rich, were all three of their games were not where it needed to be. And right now he likes their games much better. So why not try it reuniting them now while their game is much better? I
Jo-
see that thinking, but then I see what you're saying. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Although you could argue that game in Buffalo was not good and a lot more
No, but
broke better.
no, you're right. You're right. But they had to make some adjustments because they went, they took Simmons out of the lineup. They were kind of playing around with some pairings. Bunting found himself on the fourth line. Um, the one thing I'll add to that too, Joe, is the fact that um, you know, the way that they're going, it's almost like um, the experiment mid game with Tavares, Marner, and Matthews. That's not working either. They've been hemmed in their own zone. Like I don't like that. It's something that doesn't go well with me either. It's like it's almost like they all have to have the puck on the stick. It's almost better if you. I think what I think Rob made the point at one time. You may have to split the Nylander may have to drive his own line at some point. You have to split maybe all three of them if that's what it's at, if they play all better on their own, right? And last thing with the Richie, there are 8 wingers on this team. He's number 8. Sorry, he's number 7 on my list where I would put him on the top line. That's Engvall last.
Yep.
So there are a lot of options they can put on that first line. But I think you're right. I think this is their last ditch effort to get something out of 2.5 million because you don't want a 2.5 million on your fourth line either. So, buddy, unless you're gonna start giving guys like Joey Anderson a crack or Kirill Semyonov, it's this is what it is, man. It is what it is.
Yep. All right, Frank, you had some concern about Jack Campbell's playing time.
Yeah.
Why don't you?
Uh,
Yeah, go ahead.
yeah. They have so once again, you ever notice how the Leafs always come out of the gate playing so many games, and teams like Boston have like 4 or 5 games in hand? It's like that always the case. It's a
Always. I don't know how it happens.
I've noticed that like year after year, like Boston plays once every 4 days, and the Leafs are going 3 and 4. Or here's my favorite: the Leafs will play Montreal always on the second game of a back to back, and it's their first game. Like it's just those weird kind of happenings, accidentally on purpose. With what's happened to Mrazek, which a lot of people called because based on his injury history, you look at any player with injury history and the chances of them getting re-injured for a growing or what have you with the knee with goaltending. Campbell's not that far away. Campbell has had growing issues. He's had knee issues. He's had concussion issues. This is me knocking on wood, but a guy that loves being that net, that's great. They're doing everything with the maintenance days and stuff. But if your next guy up is Joseph Wall, oh boy, you may have to start thinking about bringing back some of these games because again, another tough week coming up. You're gonna have some back to back coming up as well. Um, it's the concern is real for me because I think arguably Campbell's been the MVP of this team. There are games that they've won this year because solely due to Campbell. What happens if he goes down? It's not the Hutchinson show, and they don't have the cap space to bring in another goalie. So this is a real concern for me. So this goes back to the defense. There's again, they're right back to the bottom of the league, Joe, of letting the most shots against. Campbell's number 2 in the league of shots faced. Again, that's another alarming sign.
But that's
So
also because he's played the most.
no, fair enough, Joe. Fair enough. But you look at their average shots against. This is not like they were last year in the North Division where they cut that down uh, considerably. Keeps trying to get more defensive, which is great. But there's just too many high danger scoring chances for me, and this is it. Like they're not going to get any better. This is what this is what we talked about. They're a high efficiency, high powered offense. So this is Keith's not just going to walk in there and say, "Okay, guys, we're going to become the 95 Devils." It's not going to work. So where's the adjustment then? How are they going to, you know, ensure that Campbell, doesn't break down? Like it's a real big concern for me. So and I don't have any answers. I wish I did, but I really don't. So they have nothing left in the pipeline, like nothing coming up. They're like, yeah, he's the next one. I'm glad Wall got his shot. It made a lot of my tweets very smart because I put that up a couple years ago. But I even heard a rotation. They may be rotating Calgren, Wall, and Hutchinson. We'll see. We'll see how it goes.
The Leafs might be the worst organization in the NHL at developing goalies. I don't think they've developed their own goalie
No,
since like Felix Potvin. I mean, you could count Tuukka Rask,
like
but
a
they
good
traded him
goalie,
after a year.
like a prominent starter. You mean?
Yeah. So your level of concern, I think, is something that a lot of fans share because if Campbell does get hurt, there's really no one to back him up. And we've been down the Hutch road before, and we know how that ends. But at this point, you ride Campbell, sorry, give another guy the back to back, and the team's got to learn to play better in front of the other goalies. It is what it is. Bobby, I'm going to kick it to you. You want to talk about the leadership group of this squad. I know you are always questioning the leadership group of this squad. So what tickles your fancy this time?
Before we go, I think it's ironic that you brought up ex-Leaf goalies and 3 of the top 5 save percentage and goals against goalies: Reimer, Anderson, and Campbell. So former and current Leaf goalies.
Yeah.
Um, first of all, I like kind of tinkering with stuff. I never understood last year why Keefe didn't break up the lines. I remember it was like Game 7 against the Habs, and people were like, "Oh, you got to break up Matthews and Marner." Like they hadn't done it all year. It should have happened during the season, but the timing was just odd. I was thinking about the trade deadline though, and what the Leafs can do to get better. I've kind of changed my tune. I think the Leafs can be a good playoff team, can have a substantial run, but I think the most important thing for them is to bring in Stanley Cup and elite leadership. I think of some of the moves, like they brought in Patrick Marleau and they brought in Joel Thornton. And it's like, okay, they're nice players, but those are guys from groups where they've never really gotten over the hump. They've never won. And I think back to like a team like Chicago where, Tays and Kane were leaders, but the real leader of that group was Duncan Keith and more importantly Brent Seabrook. Where when times were tough, Brent Seabrook was kind of the go-to guy. He picked up Tays a lot of the times. I remember Tays in the penalty box, head down like Marner, went over, tapped him on the head and said, "Relax." And so I think this Leafs team is mentally weak, but I think more important than anything, because of their salary cap issues, because of a lot of the issues they have, the one thing that they can add at the trade deadline is a proven winner and someone that's going to be a leader, whether it be vocal, whether it be more by doing by leading by action, or but even if it's like a third line guy, a fourth line guy, I think that should be the biggest priority of this team, because this is the say what you want. This is the team you're rocking with. You can't really do much. You're not bringing in an expiring contract, because it's not going to work financially. So I think that they need to go out and get a leader, like maybe even two, a true Stanley Cup winning leader that wants to take one more kick at the can.
Hey, let me throw a name at you. A guy on waivers. Would you pick him up, Rob? Kyle Clifford.
I like Kyle. I think they need somebody bigger, not in terms of stature, but like a more. I don't want to throw it back to somebody like this, but almost like a Mark Messier at the end of his career, somebody like that, that he might not offer you a lot. He didn't offer the Canucks a lot, and I believe he was in there in 97, 98. He
They
didn't
hated him.
offer, but he's a leader. And I think that's something where I'm not saying, but I think that's what the Leafs need. Like Clifford would be nice. I think Clifford's a good
I'm going to
player.
push back a little bit on your idea. Isn't this what they did last year when they got Foligno? Like he was the leader, the guy that they were looking for, steps up in the playoffs. He even said in the documentary, "This is where my game comes alive when you're not hurt." So
But
they
was it?
brought that guy and they paid a huge price for him, and he did literally nothing for them,
But he was
really
injured though.
nothing. So like, man, I want them to acquire a difference maker. It gets harder to score goals in the playoffs. I want a guy who can play gritty, can get to the dirty areas and pot in a few goals. I don't want just a guy, okay, he won the cup 10 years ago and now he's earned street cred for the last 10 years. Hasn't done
Yeah.
anything since then, but now he has the street cred because he won that cup 10 years ago. Like I get what you're saying, but it's also got to be the right player and it's got to be a guy who could still play. I don't
Yeah.
want to just acquire someone that won the cup.
but they've got their top guys. Like I know you want guys that can play, but you almost want a third liner that not a like you want somebody that's even more of a leader. And I thought Nick Foligno was a good ad for them, to be honest with you. It's just the guy was injured, and I think he was even playing hurt in game 5 or 6.
Yeah, he was.
So I mean that's not a great example because he was injured. If he was not injured, and I'm talking about a guy that's got
But
like pedigree.
but you're going down a slippery slope because did you see to Joe's point? What's the price for leadership? If the price is a first round pick, like the Leafs gave to Columbus, that's they got burned on that one. Like I think I know it's in hindsight, but they could have gave up less for Taylor Hall, who's hey, I know he hasn't won anything, but other than he's won a Hart Trophy, seemed to be doing okay in Boston. So like that, like obviously again hindsight. But what are you willing to pay for that leadership, and when do you pay for it? Is that something you do at the deadline? Something you do now? I'd say if you do it now. Try to bring it. Maybe if it doesn't work, okay, now it's early in the season where you can still adjust. But I just even with Foligno there, there's not enough time to get amalgamated to the system and all of that. I'd rather bring in a guy now if you had to. And like who would that like? I think the example you're looking for, Rob, is what Pittsburgh did with Jeff Carter. Like that's probably the move that they would try to make.
I agree with everything you just said, and I was actually thinking that as we were talking. Like, you go get him now. Don't wait till trade deadline where he's got 20 games with the team. And last year was a really bad example because it was a 56 game season. It was already a short season.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're not giving up a first round pick, but if you got to give up a second and third, something to bring in a guy, I think that's what this team needs because I they have the talent. They have guys that can score. They've got guys that can play different roles. They're just I think they need a leadership element, and this is the team you're rocking with. You guys can say, hey, we need this, we need that. This is the defense you're going with. These are the forwards you're going with. I don't think there's much to add.
I've got it. I've got the guy who you're looking for. Leader, cup winner, plays well in the playoffs. We should definitely bring Phil Kessel back. He's on an expiring contract.
Hey,
We're already paying him still.
we're already paying him $1 million.
And he can hit up his local hot dog spot once again.
Good one, Randy. Good
Good
one.
one.
End it right there. End it right there.
All right,
Phil
boys.
Kessel
So the
coming
Leafs have
back?
four games this week. They've got Nashville on Tuesday. They've got the Rangers on Thursday, and then they have a back-to-back with the Penguins and the Islanders. They'll be playing in the new Islander rink on Sunday. So we know that the backup goalie will get one of those back-to-backs. We'll see how the Leafs come out. I'd say if they get 6 out of a possible 8 points, that's stellar. Even 5 I'd go for would be awesome. So we'll see how it all shakes out, and we look forward to talking next week about what has happened in Leafland. Thank you all for joining us. Hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, write any comments down below, even negative ones. We like those too. And thanks for listening.